The subculture of raving has expanded over the years to become a growing movement in both recent history but also present day. Rave's part of a movement, a gathering used in one collective which stems back to the early 70s, mainly from hippie festivals such as the Isle of Wight Festival in 1970, where up to 600,000 people attended to watch Jimi Hendrix, The Who and various others perform. The event was preceded by Pilton Free Festival in 1971, later to be known as Glastonbury Festival, and followed later by other free festivals in the UK like Stonehenge and Windsor in 1974. These gatherings for music brought together various countercultures from hippies to bikers and punks with a common ideology of resistance. This continued in both 1988 and 89 with the coming of the Second Summer of Love, the subsequent to the 1967 movement from which originated in San Francisco and digressed to the UK shortly after, beginning the hippie movement. Times had subsequently changed since '67 and Britain was approaching its 10th year with Margaret Thatcher as Prime Minister, with tensions between working class and upper class, known as yuppies by some, being very high due to the dividing on wealth and the emphasis agreed placed by Thatcher's government to privatise industries within the UK. The second summer, beginning mainly in the UK from working class youths around London and Manchester, spread to various cities and classes very quickly from the music of bands like the Happy Mondays and clubs such as Hacienda in Manchester. It still carried the same values of resistance and freedom, however it differed from the mainstream due to the creation of acid house, a completely different type of music to what had ever been seen before. Derived from the use of acid and house music, the genre was created, with a mix of house and techno beats ranging from 130 to 150 beats per minute. It was the perfect rhythm to casually dance. A major problem arose as clubs would have to shut at a certain time and getting a permit for an all-night event was unfeasible. As a result, youths proceeded to organise raves without permission at whatever venue they could find, from abandoned hangars to warehouses to farmers' fields, as long as they could get the masses of people together to dance wearing uniforms of fluorescence and bagginess to emphasise their freedom. Class, race and locality tension evaporated once youths attended these raves. Organisers began to implement an efficient communication network for coordinating raves through the use of newly obtainable mobile phones, whereby various numbers for each area would be printed on flyers and sent off. As organisers didn't want to alert the police of the rave, often up to 3 venues were obtained for the true location of the site, not released until the day of the rave. At that time, those attending were called to find the spot, beginning a journey to go and find some lights, presiding in convoys, covering miles, becoming a major part of the thrill of raving. By this time in 1989, the police had taken notice of raves. At first, they were seemingly perplexed by the whole situation of 10,000 youths dancing together, quickly realising they were no threat, apart from the obvious noise complaints made by locals. However, this completely changed as raves became more widespread, causing strain for police departments. As a result, roadblocks were put in place to try and stop ravers from attending once the police had located the venue, initiating a long game of cat and mouse between ravers and the police. Media influence was clear in the detecting and creating of a moral panic commenced by rave culture. By June 1989, The Sun did their first article on raves, as they had managed to infiltrate a hangar party in Berkshire, made easy to access by youths due to the recently constructed M25 motorway network surrounding London, known as the Magic Roundabout. The next day, headlines swamped the front page, stigmatising attendance as 11,000 gone wild. From that moment, raves were part of the mainstream. Instantly, pressure was placed by sectors of the public to outlaw the rave movement. This was intensified following highly publicised deaths at raves, with responsibility specifically pointed at ecstasy. Leah Betts is an example of a notable fatality. Daughter to an ex-police officer and a nurse, she died in hospital 4 days after taking a pill at her 18th birthday in 1995. A major billboard campaign commenced undermining drug use with the slogan, "Sorted, just one tablet took Leah Betts." A short film entitled Sorted was also shown to around 500,000 children in the wake of her death, deterring recreational drug consumption. Nonetheless, although there were deaths, raves continued to evolve, due to the easier to come by technologies, limited only to music companies before. Now, small DJs could produce a music of a sound similar to of the best, just through purchasing the correct equipment. Continued development came in the commercialisation of the rave business. By 1991, companies such as Fantasia and Sunrise were key in the organisation of parties. Drug use had also developed. Acid was predominantly consumed at raves from 1988 to 89, as it was affordable. However, by the end of 1990, the so-called best ecstasy had emerged, as it took time for networks to be established. From that winter, ecstasy exploded onto the scene. According to Mackay, ecstasy seems to combine the effects of speed in a more emphatic package. Mild hallucinations, plenty of energy, and an urge to be friendly are all noted by ravers on E. This was the perfect drug for rave users, primarily for the way it managed to make users lose themselves in the music with a sense of love. Music producers began to customise their music for ecstasy users, incorporating faster tempo beats, creating hardcore and various other new genres. Evans notes, by this time, acid house had basically died out, but raves continued, attracting an increasingly wide audience, including indie kids, football fans, and travellers. Music turned towards more soulful, melodic forms of deep house, Italian and garage. The atmosphere at raves became more mellow as people sought to create a feeling of togetherness. Due to the expanding audience, the raves themselves grew in size through a growing culture of festivals. In May 1992, one of the largest to date raves took place at Castle Morton Common in Worcestershire. Up to 40,000 people camped for 8 days to revel in free music from key party sound systems like Spinal Tribe and Bedlam. However, both the police and Conservative government, now run by John Major, saw this as pure savagery and had to strike back. As a direct result of Castle Morton Common, the government realised something needed to be done. The Criminal Justice and Public Order Act of 1994 was created to combat this problem. The grouping of over 20 individuals in open air or trespassing on land to listen to music was to be made illegal, causing arrest for anyone trying to break these rules, ensuing up to 3 months prison time. Obvious opposition to the act came mainly from the left and the Labour Party.
The longest and in what way, and what punishment's going to be meted out. And whilst conceding the argument we have to look at the causes of crime, this has led them into a terrible position on the Criminal Justice Bill. The Criminal Justice Bill is an evil piece of legislation which removes the right of assembly, removes the right of silence, removes the right to roam and the right to travel. It's an attack on people's lifestyles. Labour should have voted against it on a 3-line whip in the House of Commons in April. They didn't. Only 40...
The Act sadly corresponded with some of the greatest raves and festivals to date, including the legendary Glastonbury Festival of 1994, by which the group Orbital had their rave music played to the lounges of Channel 4 viewers for the first time, presenting rave music in a different light to the way media had opposed to it before. Sadly, this appreciation was far too late, as the law had already been implemented against raves. As a result, the club industry and legal rave scene began to make the rave business into a commodity. Social media has gone a long way in modernising raves, as groups can be easily created through sites like Facebook and organised without the use of any clear communication. This comes in both the legal and illegal rave scene. However, as the industry becomes to be more expensive, clubs continue to shut their doors as revellers don't see the benefit in paying so much. There used to be over 3,000 clubs in London, now it's only half that. On the other hand, festivals are having a similar boom to a scene to in the 90s, with more tickets bought than ever. Potentially, this is a sign towards the death of club life and the re-establishment of festival culture, whereby raves have metamorphosized into festivals through the use of drugs and the bands which perform. But they are still a stride away from the same standard they once were.